getting there.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, today is Wednesday, May 18th, and this 2022, and this is Bible study. We're back in the book of Revelation, chapter 7 and 8. Okay, last week, let's recoup a little bit about what we were doing last week. Last week, we were in chapters 5 and 6. Chapter 5 helps set you up on what it means to be sealed. And then chapter 6 takes you through the seals all the way up until you hit chapter 7, where it stops at the 6th seal in chapter 6. Okay, now chapter 7 switches gears without finishing the 7th seal. The 7th seal doesn't begin until chapter 8. So you have this seemingly just inserted chapter right in the middle, right at the end of the seals. And often I've wondered why. Why is it in that? Why is it there? Why didn't it just finish out the seals and then go into another chapter? But instead, it doesn't. And once you really understand the subject matter in chapter 7, then that you start to begin to understand why. Okay, so chapter 7 is something that happens at the end of it all. We're in the 6s and the 7s now. So we're talking about moving toward the end of the book of Revelation. So that's something to keep in mind. So this is something that occurs in there. Now, chapter 7 is where we're going to pick it up. At verse 1. Let's get set up here on this so we can see it real well. All right. Revelation chapter 7, verse 1. And after these things, I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. Okay, these 4 winds are spoken of in Daniel. And really all that is it's just the pressures that bring about the end in the book of Revelation is really what it is. All right? And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. So they're sealed. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their forehead. So we're talking about being sealed, all right? And again, that mark is in your forehead. And again, like we said last week, if you've taken the word of God and you place it in your forehead, it'll be evidenced in your labor of your hands. And this is going to switch gears in the next few chapters because we're going to do the negative side, but this is the positive side. All right. Verse 4, and I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Okay, so here we have those lost tribes spoken of again. Now, if you're pretty familiar with the Bible, you're going to know that these patriarchal lists that you have here is not the original one. There's been some changes, and we'll discuss some of them as we go through them. But by the end of the book, or by the end of the book of Revelation, you find that those original tribes, or those original patriarchs, restored their position at the end. By the end, so that's a good indication of what happens, particularly during the millennium and things like that. All right, now here's the list. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were, verse 5. Of the tribe of Judah were sealed 12,000. And the tribe of Reuben were sealed 12,000. And the tribe of Gad were sealed 12,000. Verse 6, and of the tribe of Asher were sealed 12,000. And of the tribe of Nephthalim were sealed 12,000. And of the tribe of Manasseh were sealed 12,000. And of the tribe of Simeon were sealed 12,000. And of the tribe of Levi, or the priest, were sealed 12,000. And of the tribe of Issachar were sealed 12,000. And of the tribe of Zebulun were sealed 12,000. And of the tribe of Joseph were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Benjamin were sealed 12,000. Okay, well, those are all that were sealed of the tribes. Now, you should notice a few things. One that I want to point out is Ephraim was one of the largest tribes, but yet it's not mentioned in this list. But yet his brother Manasseh is. All right? That just means Ephraim does so poorly that he doesn't field anybody who's sealed in the last days. Is all that really means. Now, you notice that Joseph is here because Joseph is the father of Manasseh and Ephraim, all right? And it's really Joseph that is the promise to be a tribe was made to him, but he splits his birthright between Manasseh and Ephraim. That's why they're referred to as the half tribe sometimes. Okay, here you got Manasseh mentioned, but Ephraim was completely out, and then therefore Joseph takes his place. There has to be 12. If you just grab any Jewish person, when they start talking about the 12 tribes, there has to be 12 tribes, and you see that 12 tribe kind of an idea is maintained in this list. All right, like I said, there are some changes, there are some other ones, but like by the end of the book of Revelation, they're doing a lot better by the end of the book. All right, let's go on. Verse 9, and after this I beheld, and lo, get set up here. Verse 9, and after this, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations, kindreds, and peoples, and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Now, let's go on. Verse 10, and cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our God, which sitteth upon the throne, and to the Lamb. And all the angels stood around about the throne, and about the elders and the four beasts, and fell before the throne on their faces and worshiped God, saying, Amen. Blessing, glory, wisdom, thanksgiving, honor, and power, and might be unto our God forever and ever. Amen. All right, here we have, a lot of people will try to tell you that there's only a few people that are saved in the book of Revelation. All right. Here you have a great multitude, okay, that is talking about. Not only will it go on to talk about looking back and see just down through time all the people that are saved the same way that these people are. So don't let them fool you into thinking that that's the only people. We started talking about 12,000 people from each tribe. Okay, these people were. I don't want to get too deep into this because it's actually a special study that I want to do, but these people were sealed from before the foundation. That's going to mean something to you. All right. Of the tribes of Israel. All right. Now, that was a long time ago when these names were established. All right, and it's still out of those same tribes that we've been talking about, where we started talking about in the Garden of Eden, when we started where they were actually established with Eve, Adam and Eve.
Patriarchs.
Okay, right, and that's in that direct lineage. These people descend downstream from that exact lineage out of Adam. Okay, but as you can see, they're doing fine. Man's lost where the tribe is. God knows where his people went. And here in the last days, he pulls them all back together. Don't let anybody fool you into thinking that all of Israel is contained in the tribe of Judah that is currently in what we call modern Israel. That is only one tribe, two tribes max. The rest of them are out there doing just fine. And here we have all the people that are sealed from before the foundations are sealed from those very people. So nothing changes from cover to cover. When you start talking about tribes in the beginning, or in the book of Revelation, we're still talking about the same people. Okay? It doesn't change. Nothing changes. Okay, where are we at now? Verse 13, I believe. Is that right? Mm-hmm. All right. And one of the elders saying to me, What are these which are arrayed in white robes? And whence comest they? And they said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said unto me, These are they which came out of great tribulation. All right, so this description that we had just comes out of this tribulation period. Now remember what it told in one church. It said, there's nothing good going on in your church, and I want you to buy gold that is tried by fire, all right? Well, this is a result of that trying by fire. These people are those which washed their robes because of the great tribulation, okay? And unwashed their robes and made them so white with the blood of the Lamb. Therefore they are before the throne of God and serve him day and night in his temple. And he that sitteth on the throne shall dwell among them. And they shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun light on them, nor any heat. For the Lamb which is in the midst of the throne shall feed them, and shall lead them to living fountains of water, and God shall wipe away the tears from their eyes. Okay, now I want to cover that a little bit, okay, because this is important. This is a reference to the third age, where God wipes away the tears of his people. Okay, let's think about why he would say it that way. And what does that really mean? All right? There will be people. See, we have a hard time understanding right now because we're locked in our flesh, and like all of them that came before us, we can't remember what happened. All right? But at the seventh trumpet, during the transfiguration, after that, we get our memories back. We can remember the first age. We'll remember this one too. All right, you got 2 ages that he's working with us here, okay? Now, in the third age, you've already made it through Judgment Day. Everything's good to go. Now, the people that perish during Judgment Day in the lake of fire, to be blotted out means so much more than to just die a spiritual death. Not only that, but for this to be true, that there be no more tears, it means you won't even remember the people that died at the end, that died in the lake of fire. All right? And you say, well, how's that? Well, think about this. We've lived through an entire heaven and earth age before, and we're born in this one now, and we can't remember it, so it'll be naturally much like the same way. It'll seem just natural to us.
This will be a blink.
Right, we just won't remember. They just won't exist.
Yeah.
So to die in the lake of fire is more than just the death of your soul. It's the death of your ever existing. People who do go on won't remember you. That's why they won't shed a tear. And that's really important, because the only one that remembers from that point on is God. And he's the only one. I really think that has a lot to do with why we come in this earth age. Is that so we can be born, so we can face death, so we do understand what it's like for him to have to kill one of his children on Judgment Day. I mean, so we'll understand. It's not just, there's a lot to that. But nonetheless, that finishes chapter 7. So that finishes the parenthetical insertion then into chapter 7. Now, if we go back into chapter 6, well, we were in the last seal, which that seal, there's a lot of falling stars that were going on in the 6th seal, right? So we were right there on the cusp of the second advent. All right, now, so let's go on into chapter 8 and let's see what it's got to say. You okay? Let me just take a break right here and get a drink for a second. It's amazing how hard it is to talk and not get a dry mouth. It takes about 10 minutes. All right. Okay, so there you have it. That's the sealing of the election from chapter 7 of the book of Revelation. And it's no big mystery, okay? And if you don't understand what I mean by the first heaven and earth age, there's a little bit of catching up you're going to have to do. We're going to eventually enter into another kind of video that we do. I think I'm going to call them something like biblical education videos, where we're going to go back and do some of the lessons that we've done before, me and you.
That's fine.
And put them back on the website, so we've got those, so we don't have to continually go back and pick up new people. But they can just have homework and go do it. Right, they go do it. Right. Then wherever we're at. But it just that fundamental lessons that really help you understand this.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're going to finish this book first. All right. Now here we go. We're getting back on track then. We're in the 7th seal, all right? The 7s all belong to Christ. The 6s all belong to the Antichrist. 666, it's 6 seals, 6 vials, 6 trumpets. There's not a tattoo. It's not right. 777. They all belong to Christ.
Luck.
They're right.
You know what I mean? If
a lot of people think so.
Yeah,
right.
you know what I mean?
Well, there's a reason why the number 7. Number 7 is fundamental in the law when it comes to calculating days and things like that.
Humans, look at the way we calculate days.
Yeah, right. 7. It's all influenced. Right. Exactly. It's all influenced. All right. Okay, here we are. We're in the 7th seal then, all right? And this belongs to the Messiah himself. Now listen to what it says. And when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. All right. Now remember what we said, chapter 3, verse 10. I'll just read it to you. I got it right here. All right. Now we're talking about this silence in heaven about the space of half an hour, all right? Because thou hast kept the word of my patience. Now this is in the church of Philadelphia in chapter 3, one of the 2 churches that Christ had no fault with. All right, this is what he says. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, which means that you've preserved the word of God to the point that you can still understand its meaning, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. Behold, I come quickly, hold fast to that which thou hast, that no man take thy crown. All right. So here you have the overall period of the Antichrist, not called the hour of temptation. All right. Now, it's still hour of temptation, even if you're in the book of Daniel. where this entire time period starts out as 7 years. All right? But you're going to find out in chapter 9, which we talked about before, the whole thing gets reduced down to a 5-month period in the book of Revelation, chapter 9. All right? But it doesn't matter whether you're talking about a 5-month period or 7-year period, it's still the hour of temptation. That is still the whole thing. All right? So now let's go back here to where we were and see what it says. Here we have silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. So in heaven, there's nobody there. And remember, Lucifer is your great accuser. He stands before the throne night and day. When somebody screws up that's important to God, he points it out. He's your great accuser. So he's a yak box that's constantly there. Well, here now it's quiet. The reason it's quiet is because he no longer exists in heaven, and now you're in the sixth seal judgment, and you have the appearance of the first white horse. He's here on earth. He's not in heaven anymore. That's why there's silence for half of the hour of temptation. Now you got to remember, that means whether it's 7 years or whether it's 5 months, that's half of that. So if you're talking about Daniel, that's 3.5 years, which we'll get to when we start. We're talking about the 3.5 year period. You're going to talk about that. But that 3.5 period is only half of the hour of temptation, if you follow what I'm saying. So that means if it's reduced to 5 months, that means it's only 2.5 months in the book of Revelation, if you follow what I'm saying. So it tells you then that when it happens, Lucifer is quiet in heaven. Well, guess what? He's yakking his box on earth now. All right? And so that's where the point you are with that. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before, verse 2. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. So he finished up all the seals, and now we're moving into the trumpets. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar, which is before the throne. Okay. So if you don't ever think God ever hears your prayers, well, guess what? He does care. You're going to find out a little bit more about him here in just a second, all right? And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. All right. What is this taken from the altar of God? This is the things that are going on in the last days. This is the positive things on God's side. The sealing of the elect, the sealing of these people. This is the thing that's actually holding up the end, really, is these people have to be made aware of who they are. And have to understand their role. All right? And that really is the single thing I can think of, really, that that's holding up everything. Once that's done, then just let it rip.
Yeah, right.
Okay? Did we finish that? Did we finish through chapter 5, lightnings and earthquakes? Yes, we did. All right. So nonetheless, there you have, that's all the way through. We're getting ready to jump on to all of this, of the trumpets here as we go. All right. Verse 6. And the 7 angels, which had the 7 trumpets, prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood. And they were cast upon the earth, and a third part of the trees was burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. Now I don't believe this is going to be a literal thing. I don't think it literally is going to burn up. Because the book is this is a book full of symbols, first of all. First of all, let's take hail, fire, mingled with blood. That's just judgment. That's God's judgment upon all the people. That's part of the trumpets. Remember, he said in verse 10, chapter 3, verse 10, this tribulation period comes to test us. Okay, so if you failed the test, it's because you didn't do your homework. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. Okay? So nonetheless, verse 8, and the second angel sounded, and there was a great mountain burning with fire that was cast into the sea, and a third part of the sea became as blood. Okay, you're going to find out in chapter 17 that the sea is people. All the waters are people. All right? So this mountain that's burning with fire, it's Babylon. We're going to start talking about, it's a nation. Mountains mean nations. Let's see, Zechariah chapter 6, verse 1. If you're on the website, it's right there next to it. You're going to listen to what it says. And I turned and lifted, this is Zechariah chapter 6, verse 1. Because here we get the 4 horsemen again. And I turned and lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, there came 4 chariots out from between 2 mountains, and the mountains were mountains of brass. Okay, there is no such thing as a mountain of brass. So we know we're looking at a symbol. So the mountain is something. All right, let's see if we can figure out what it is. In the first chariot were red horses, and in the second chariot, black horses. Sound kind of familiar? And in the third chariot, white horses, and in the fourth chariot, grizzled and bay horses. So we have the same exact setup as you have of the book of Revelation with the four horsemen of the apocalypse, which were the first seal, the first four seals in the book of Revelation. All right? Where were chariots? There it is. Verse 4. Then I answered and said unto the angel that talked with me, what are these, my Lord? And the angel answered and said unto me, these are the four spirits of heaven, all right, which go forth from standing before the throne of the Lord of all the earth. The black horses which are thereon go forth into the north country, and the white go forth after them, and the grizzled go forth toward the south country. All right, so each one of these mountains is a nation. Okay, that's what I'm getting at. Now, we're going to find out that these mountains are also mentioned. The Whore of Babylon sits on 7 mountains, so we're talking about the same setup as we are with the first beast. You'll see them rise from the people, which is people. That's why it says over in the book of Revelation, that a third part of the sea became as blood. The sea is people, and they have blood in their body. That's the sea of blood is really what you're looking at. All right, now remember also in the first earth age too, is a third of the host of God went with Lucifer in the first earth age. All right, so we're also talking about that third here. All right, they're all tied into this. All right. And the third part of the creatures which were in the sea are people and had life died. You can even hearken this all the way back to the 5th day, with the creation on the 5th day that was from the water that had a soul and a flesh. Okay? Still it was people. That life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. Now that one should start clicking right here. Ship is another symbol. All right? Ship is commerce. It still is commerce. Was then and it still is today. Almost all the commerce worldwide is carried off through naval shipping. All right. Well, guess what? Our naval shipping has ceased. Just has ceased, and all these short balls are getting ready to catch up with us. Well, I truly believe this is what this is referring to. We've got at least a third of the ships not functioning right now.
At least.
At least, right. A third is not a total destruction of anything. It just means that everything gets really tight. All right, now, buddy,
it starts cutting the
news. It starts getting tighter and tighter, right?
Yeah. It's crazy.
Right? And so I truly believe that you're looking at that. We've all witnessed that in the last few months with the total stop of shipping worldwide. China has the largest seaport in the world that hasn't moved a bit in over 2 months now. Nonetheless, verse 10. No set on that, you get the point. Now, remember, this ties right back to those horses we were talking about earlier a couple of lessons ago. All right. Verse 10. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as if it were a lamp, and it fell upon a third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of water. Well, guess who this is? All right, we got the great fallen star. There's only really one of those, and his name's Lucifer when he appears as the Antichrist. Burning, let's just say, as a lamp, remember, shining. The big question is, do you understand which morning star you're looking at when he appears? All right. Verse 11, because if there was any doubt who it was, listen to this. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. Wormwood means bitterness. Well, guess what? In Russian, it means Chernobyl. All right. You've been seeing that all in the news lately, right there in the middle of Ukraine with the Russian advances in Ukraine. All right. And a third part of the waters became wormwood or bitter. And many men died of the waters spiritually because they were made bitter. All right. So you follow the symbol along. Verse 12. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars. So as a third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. That's a lot of thirds. All right. So we're definitely talking about that third that fell. So we've got the return of the Nephilim, we've got wormwood present on the earth, here we're in the middle of the trumpets. All right? So you just know what's going on. Verse 13, is that what we're doing? And I beheld and heard an angel flying. Now this angel, I believe, is not as a mistranslation. I think it's eagle is what it should be, but they went with angel, and we can go with that. I just throw that up there just for you. But it's neither here nor there, but it's what it says that matters. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by the reason of the voices of the trumpets of three angels, which are yet to sound. Okay? So there you have it. So we're all the way through now on the trumpets, all the way up to the last three woe trumpets. All right, and that's where we're going to pick it up with next week. Was with the woe trumpet, because that's where it really starts to get thick then. But right now, you should have already started to develop kind of a motif about the book of Revelation. Yeah. It's repeated consistently. That's why it's broken down into three parts like that. And it truly repeats the same thing every time, just warning you about the same events over and over and over. The long and the short of the book of Revelation and the truth about being sealed comes down to one thing, is that do you understand that the Antichrist appears just before the Messiah's return? It's only 5 months total. I can't count apparently. That's 5 where I come from, but this does too. It's only 5 months. And if he appears midweek, that means you're only having to deal with the Antichrist on earth in your face for 2.5 months. There's not a human on earth that cannot use enough of their mind power to survive for 2.5 months. Right? You can do it. Anybody can, especially if you know it's coming. Right? And the only thing you got to do to prepare is just be ready. Just have it in your mind. That's what it means to be sealed. That you've taken those seals, just like in the Old Testament, like it said to do with the word, with the law specifically, was what it was saying. Place it in your mind so that it's evidenced in your labor. And if you do that, he placed the seals in your mind, it'll be evidenced in what you do, especially when the Antichrist appears. Especially then. So you ain't seen nothing yet. Talk about, you try to talk to some people like that come around us, and I try to talk to them about the great apostasy and things like that, and especially the older preachers are like, oh, that's happening now. That's been going on a while. I'm like, no, that's part of the deception. In reality, that's part of the deception, because that doesn't occur until the Antichrist appears, right?
So you don't know when it has.
That's right.
When it does go down.
Okay, so just on closing then, be looking for different kind of videos. We'll be calling them BEVs. So it'll be mylittlebiblestudy.com, or they're just biblical educational videos. Some of them will be real short. Some of them will be just as simple as this is this word, right? And this is translated to these things. So a lot of them will be almost clinical, and just so you can understand, because you'd be surprised where translation makes a difference in some of your understanding. But nonetheless, that's it. You guys have a good night. Ta-da.